just wanted to compliment you on publishing your list of 100 books on your blog page. I was very impressed.
My blog page internet. Ooh, so young
Yeah,
and
I know.
hip. Gotcha.
I'm impressed by two things. First of all, I know that you have read all of these books.
No, that's not true.
Secondly, the first 95 are done alphabetic. I'm going to comment ask you some of the questions about that. But the last five books are the articles, the books that you consider to be the most important, and I wanted to ask you about those five because we only have a short time here. So, number 5 in the most important series. 5 greatest books ever written by order of greatness, as you put it.
By order of great. I did it as though Caesar was putting his seal of approval on this document.
Or like you were the Pope speaking ex urbi, ex orbi, to the city and to the world.
Yes.
Pope Alex the First, Alex the Last, actually.
Right.
Anyway, so number 5 on the list is Homer's Iliad.
Correct. Yes.
Why did you put that as number 5? Why was that one of the greatest books?
Well, if you read as much as I haven't read everything on the list, but I can very easily say I have read a lot. Virtually every work of fiction, to a certain degree, traces its roots back to Homer. Okay. And it's partly the fact that he was one of the first to write it down, and it just so happened to be preserved and so well. Mm-hmm. Because it was so well preserved, and so many people, it's a good story. So many other authors took little pieces from it, and did their own thing. So, why I call it so great is because the little drops of greatness that Homer put into his work, you can find traces of everywhere else.
Right. And for our fans out there, and by the way, thank you for following us and sending us money and supporting us. For those of you who haven't read the Iliad, it is one of the greatest compilations of ancient mythologies. Mm-hmm. Some of them are Persian mythologies, some of them are Greek mythologies, and legends, stories. So
it's all one narrative of the Trojan War.
Every film that has ever been produced in Hollywood owes the tip of the hat to Homer's Iliad. If you think that Harry Potter is so greatly creative and brand new,
it's original.
Yeah, it's original. Then good choice on the Iliad.
By the way, another note: in the 95, I do include the sequel, which, in my opinion, I personally think the sequel was better than the original.
Yeah.
But I had to tip my hat to what actually influenced more, and I think that the original was the sequel is the Odyssey. It's about how one of the heroes.
Normally in school and college and high school, we studied the Iliad and the Odyssey, and naturally we study them in Greek and we study them in Latin.
It's like pairing a good wine with your Yeah,
I have a good wine right here, actually.
Yeah. And am I the meal? Is that it?
Yeah, reading great books and having wine or tea is really something to be recommended. Now, number 4 on your list, we're moving from 4 to 1, is Aldous Huxley's A Brave New World. Why did you put that on such a high priority?
Well, this goes to the books over my sort of philosophy in putting a lot of people, they might rate it on the amount of books sold, they might rate it on critical appeal or influence, and those are all great factors, but I also wanted to include a fourth factor, and this is very much opinionated, which and that is what will make you a better person. That's why I decided not to include Catcher in the Rye. I think that's a book that people should read. I also didn't include Communist Manifesto because I think that book is garbage, although everyone should read it.
Right.
The reason why I included A Brave New World, I include a lot of dystopian books, not because they're uplifting. They are the opposite of uplifting. Same thing, and Brave New World is no exception. It is a depressing book. Right. The reason why I include it is because I have never encountered, or at least there are very few books that lay it bare just what happens when you are given everything you want at the expense of your freedom.
Yeah, Yeah. The other reason I like it, by the way, I noticed that on your general list of 1 to 95, you start off with George Orwell's 1984.
Well, it's
And
alphabetical,
these
so.
two books, 1984 and A Brave New World, are often studied in college.
Beautiful pair. Beautiful pairing. Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
and you know what I think
Yeah.
the distinction is between the two. In George Orwell in 1984,
May I finish your sentence for you? George
yes,
Orwell talks about how we will be taken over by what we fear, whereas Huxley talks about how we will be taken over by what we love.
yes, very good, very good. Yeah, yeah. Another way to spin that, another way to roll that out, is to say that whereas Orwell produces a draconian world where you're forbidden to think for yourself. A Brave New World, Huxley, he goes one step further. He says totalitarian regimes want to create a world where you don't want to think, right?
That's another great way to put it. Yeah, that's pretty
You
good.
don't want to think. In Huxley's world, the totalitarian state is a state where you would never even think about thinking, let alone have a thought.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, let's move on to number 3, a big one, really big influencer. Most of Western Christian society owes its tip of the hat to Plato's Republic. But I want to hear why you think it's one of the great books.
Well, because you're dead on right, is because and it's a lot of the same reason why I put the Iliad on, is because you can see traces in virtually every philosopher in Western civilization, even the postmodernists.
Yeah.
Everyone really owes a debt. And you could argue, well, Plato was just there first. He just so happened to come. And you could make that argument fine, but either way, he still was there first. And his ideas have been plagiarized, adapted, revisioned, and are based on a lot of what he. And it's not just philosophy. It's political theory.
Yep.
It's metaphysics,
Ethics,
society.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
so much.
The way I pair them up, I pair Plato with Homer. Plato is to philosophy as Homer was to mythology.
Well, I would go
They
further.
did the same
I'd say
thing.
Homer was to fiction or the narrative.
Because Plato was really a mathematician, and he got his start with the pre-Socratics, Parmenides, Pythagoras, Euclid. They impressed him, and he was so impressed by them that he believed that there is a perfect non-material world that beckons us to imitate it. And of course, we can't because we're imperfect beings. So that's my take on it. I know we should spend more time on Plato, but we got to move on.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, this is a funny one. Folks, if you don't know Alex Madai, okay, the fact that this book is number 2, only superseded by the Bible, okay, then you don't know Alex Madagian the way I do. So the book of number 2 is called How to Win Friends and Influence People by a fellow by the name of Dale Carnegie. So I'm just going to throw it out there to you, Alex. Why in the world do you put Dale Carnegie as number 2 on the hit list?
Just like the Bible, I always keep this right by my side on my desk. It's always on my right hand side. The reason
well, I
why
hope you do that when you're married, okay? When you're married and you're in your bed with your wife, I hope you have that right by.
I know the bedstand. Look at that.
Because you really want to influence your wife. You really want to do that.
If you I think that, it's one of those books, and I try to think about every single book on this list, whether ultimately if it meets this criteria. If you read this book, will you be a better person?
Yes, you will be. Yeah.
And this book, it's virtually 100% guarantee.
Right.
If you read this, you will improve.
And let me tell you something, folks. He's really telling you the truth because I studied this book when I was in high school. I'm a geezer. So this book has had influence over geezers as well as Alex's generation, iGens and X generation people. And it's based upon a very simple underlying ethic. Treat other people as you would like to be treated. the golden rule. That's the secret of it. But it goes through a marvelous series of techniques and benefits.
Well, you see, I mean, just as, okay, you know how we talk about Homer is the basis of all fiction,
Yep.
Plato is the basis of all philosophy?
Yep.
This is basically the basis of all self-help books.
Yes.
Every self-help book
and
ever
marketing
written.
and that marketing and advertising.
Marketing, advertising, business.
Yes. If you're
relationships, you name it. That's
why I'm telling you, keep it on the bedstand when you're married. All right.
Yeah.
Have a very happy marriage. All right. Let's move on because we're running out of time here, and of course we could spend a whole series of podcasts on the number one book in Alex's hit parade is of course the Bible. Go.
The Bible, just on, as I point out in my blog, even by just secular standards, there is no contest which is the most influential book of all time. Mm-hmm. The Quran is something like a couple 100 million, some estimates say 100 million, maybe a billion copies out there. Yeah. Mao's Little Red Book, about 900 million.
Yeah.
None of them are even close to the Bible. You know how many published or how many copies have been made?
No.
Over 6 billion.
6 billion copies of the Bible?
Yes.
Since Gutenberg made the first Bible?
Since it was canonized. It has been the New York Times bestseller since it was done in like
and it is the most stolen book out of hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not steal. I guess they look it up and they
like miss that page. I don't know.
They rip it out. They rip the whole page right out.
So I want to get right back. I mean, all those aside, of all the other things we mentioned, the dystopian novel, the fiction novel or narrative, philosophical, and self-help, all four of those categories, all four of them can trace their roots and have echoes of the Bible. Now, even if you do not believe in the supernatural authority behind the Bible, or you do not believe it was divinely inspired, you cannot deny the truths that are in it are true for just about every civilization. Thou shalt not murder.
Right.
You should love your neighbor as yourself.
Right. Do you know who some of the most vociferous readers of the Bible are? Atheists. Atheists. Yeah, and filmmakers, because they get
What's the difference?
I remember talking to Chuck Heston about this because he did a whole series called The Bible. I should send it to you, by the way, because you'd really like it. But I was asking him, I said, why do you think the Bible is so influential? He said, because it expresses human nature better than any other collection of stories, including Shakespeare. Pretty good. Anyway, that's all for today. I want to thank all of you for liking and sharing us. Please click on the little following button for us if you would. And if you really, 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 really like us, send us about $5 or $10 a month and keep us on the air. Alex, a great triumph on the 100 books. If you haven't read these books, there's your bibliography.
I'll try and include a link for you in the Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. All right. See you later.
Love you all, guys. God bless you. And you too,
Cheers.
Professor McIntyre. Cheers. Take care. We go read some books.
Okay, I will. Bye-bye.